I believe people will be still coming in, so we just start because we have three good speakers today. So a very good morning to fellow AAT members and also participants today. I'm Chow Fong, here the moderator for this morning's event. First of all, welcome to the third series of the AAET Green Award Breakfast Chat with our past country winners, brought to you by the ASEAN Academy of Engineering and Technology, AAET. Fellow participants, we have completed two series of the similar session earlier, in which we have brought in our past winners to share about their contribution, their participation, as well as their passion for green. And today, we will have three speakers together with us today, including one which is actually from overseas, which will be recorded. And this hopefully will inspire all of you here to participate and perhaps also be one of the winners for this as well. So if you want to know more about the ASEAN Green Awards 2021, which is this year, stay tuned to the end of the session where we will actually share with you as well how you can participate in this year's award. Now, to start off, house rules for our webinar today. Please keep your Zoom to silent mode throughout the session. And the Q&A session will be conducted at the end of the session after the three speakers have actually spoken. And you can put up your questions in the chat column. And if you want to actually speak, you raise your hand and I will invite you all to speak and of course ask questions to the speakers. And without further ado, I believe to open up today's session, we have none other than the the founder and of course the chairman of the steering committee of this ASEAN Green Awards 2021, who's very influential to make this award happening for the last 10 years. He's none other than academician, engineer, TS Chu Kok Beng. Maybe Engineer Chu, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think you all got up very early morning not to hear my voice. You hear my voice very often, I think you get bored already, you know. But anyway, just to let you all know what is happening is, I think from this year onwards, you all must have realized now that this is going to be an AAET Green Award. In the past, we used to cooperate with the MCCC, Malaysian China Chambers of Commerce. But from this year onwards, it's 100% AAET award. I think so. It's very important that we make it a very successful one. And the pandemic is really helping us in a way, you know, to make sure that we do not follow the old norms. So we have to follow the new norms. So it's good. It's good to start something totally different from what we have done in the past. You know, so I think the opportunity is here. And what I am happy to note is today, for the first time, our breakfast award. Before I start speaking, there's already 26 participants, and the past one wasn't very good. So we hope that in the next we may have one more before the final before the award, or maybe you can have one or two more before the award. We should reach higher figures because the membership of AAET also getting higher and higher. And I was joking that if you are AAET fellow, associate fellow now, and if you don't attend this flagship event that we have, maybe we have one breakfast meeting once every 2 months, you will give you minus points. So you take longer years to reach your fellow status. Talking about that. Okay, so it is good. And then I think that we are also, for the purpose of this award, is actually not only to show how clever you all are, what you have provided for in greening the whole world, but we also want to look at developing the potential for the Green Award winners, so that whatever ideas that they have can be picked up by others, and perhaps they can help to them to have a brighter future. So I'm very happy that today we got three speakers and one very dedicated lady from the Philippines. She actually done very well, no? But unfortunately now she's in the US, and she has agreed to send her recording to us, taken the effort to send the recording. I think in the future we also will do this for people who are very, very busy. If you can actually produce a very nice video recording for us, we don't mind doing that. So we can even do that more often rather than they insist that you appear on the time that we have our breakfast meeting. So with that, at the same time, please, I would like to just remind you all that I have more or less stood back after many years of organizing this award. And the new champion on the taking over is actually Yao Chao Fong. So supported by Dr. Fook. Now it's called Dr. Fook. He just called Doctorate. So for anything concerning this award, can you please direct all your attention to Yao Chao Fong? He's younger, he's got more energy, and Dr. Fook is going to help him to get things running. I will be always there to be a busybody to see that things move along a little bit better. Okay, thank you very much. So, Chao Fong, back to you. Please do your best.
Thank you, Engineer Chu, for the inspiring opening message. Let's move on to our speakers today. We have 3 speakers. And of course, the first speaker is none other than Miss Queenie Chong from Brunei. A little bit on Miss Queenie. She was a grand winner of the AAET Green Award 2014. She is also the founder of 350.org Brunei. She is also a committee member of Majlis Perundingan Kampung Brunei. And today, she's going to share with us a topic on setting up of recycling system and programs. So over to you, Ms. Queenie, for your for your session. Are you ready?
Yes, thank you so much. So everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Share my slide.
Yep. Okay. The slides is there.
Okay, cool. So yeah. Let me just move this. So good morning, everyone. So I'm Queenie Chong and the grand winner of 2014. So before I start, I would really like to thank you all for contacting me. It has been almost 7 years since I've received the award. Yeah, been quite a long time. So I was really excited when Dr. Fook actually contacted me, and really grateful to be able to share my environmental work and experience for the past 10 years today. Just a brief introductions about myself. So I have founded 350.org Brunei back in 2010. And that was a time that I was in the second year of uni in Melbourne, Australia. I was studying there. When I graduated, my first career was an educator at a sixth form center in Tutong. Okay, that was a part of district in Brunei. And that was the time that I was able to set up the recycling system and experimenting quite numerous of activities and programs in that school. And at the end of 2018, I decided to quit my government job and venture into startups. So that is where my exciting journey started. So my first project is 350.org Brunei. That was a time that I actually started this because I came across about climate change when I was in uni, and I was invited by my friend to attend this forum, and I came across climate change, and I was so shocked that I didn't know much about it. That was 10 years ago. I didn't know much about it, and I don't see any of my friends actually talk about it. Yeah, so I thought, you know what? Overnight, I start Googling around and then get some inspiration and idea. So that I chanced upon 350.org. That's when I said, you know what? I'm gonna start this movement in Brunei. So just to give you an idea, 350.org is an international environmental organization addressing climate crisis. The goal is to end the use of fossil fuel and transition into renewable energy by building a global grassroots movement. So it's in a way similar to Earth Hour. So I basically started the Brunei movement. Yeah, so I started with a simple Facebook page, and then that's where I share a lot of like environmental news, like also tips about how to be more sustainable. Yeah. So while I was on 350.org, I was also a very active volunteers of a lot of like environmental kind of activities and events. Yeah, as you can see from the first pictures, I was a volunteer and also active participants in, you know, events such as Earth Hour. Yeah, it's like a ongoing, it's like a yearly, back then was Earth Hour was one of the greatest movement, most, so yeah, so I was the one that, you know, gather everybody before the time, gather everybody, and then try to raise awareness as fast as possible so that people could come and join me that movement. And also maybe brainstorm about what activity can we do, you know, around this around environment kind of event. Yeah, as you can see from the second pictures, I'm also I'm also an active participant of National Environmental Conference. Yeah, so where I get to, you know, mingle around and connected to a lot of like environmental NGO or individual who are active in this, like, you know, movement. So that time I also came across quite a few, you know, activities, such as, you know, one of the interesting event will be like building an earth bag. So as you can see from the third picture over here, that's actually my students behind me. Yeah, that was the most interesting one. We actually, you know, gather some materials and then, you know, put it into the guni, right? And then, you know, like basically it's an earth bag house, like a hut. Yeah, so basically you put all the soil and all the materials and then put it into a guni, and then that will form a brick, and then that's where you build the house. Yeah, so that was the one of the activities where we have joined. Yeah, so the second project is actually recycling club. That was when I got back to Brunei back in 2012. I set up the recycling club in the school. It was a new college.
Very hot, they just
Sorry, is there somebody speaking? Sorry. And yeah, so the recycling club was started in a new college, because I thought that, you know, being a new school, maybe it's good to, you know, start having some, you know, start practicing some good habits. Yeah, so our vision is to create a better environment for our next generation. So along with my students, we set up the recycling system in the school for about 6 years, as you can see from the first photo. So the first one is actually for paper, second one is for plastic, and then the third one is aluminum cans. But if you look at the picture right now, right, you can see that it was a headache to manage, because people just seems to dump different kind of things into it. Yeah, it was a very challenging 6 year managing the recycling system, but it was also very rewarding because I really learned a lot about human behavior. Yeah, and also learn about what are the challenges, you know, of running a recycling system. So what I've learned a lot is people, because think about this, like back in 2012, right, almost like 10 years ago, the awareness about environment was not there. So also, but interestingly, right, one of the things that I constantly came across was actually kitchen waste. So basically it was actually near to the road, right, and a lot of, like, you know, parents, you know, drop their children and they saw big bins there, right? So they didn't even read, you know, knowing what the bin is. They thought that it's actually for general waste. So they actually dumped their kitchen waste there. And we found out probably a day or two later, and there was so many maggots. So basically my students and I have been the maggots cleaner for almost, you know, for quite a while. Yeah, until we raised so much awareness around this. We started, when WhatsApp was a thing, we started to send memo, you know, about this, you know, issue to parents and teachers as well, so that we can monitor it. Yeah, so it was very interesting. But another thing we also figured that there was no issue with paper, so paper is fine. And then but there was a lot of issue around plastic, because as long as it's plastic, people think that can be recyclable. Yeah, they can, like for example, they finish a drink, right, and it's a plastic cup, and there was some residue left, and they just throw it in, and those things can actually attract a lot of nasty bugs, yeah, like cockroach and all these things. So yeah, it was a very interesting experience managing it. As for the aluminum can, right, this is really the most interesting part. That bin is never full. Why? Because aluminum can is very valuable. So yeah, so when people found out there's aluminum can inside, it just disappeared. So it will constantly disappear after some time. So I think that people actually get it and then sold it off. So the aluminum can for the past throughout the 6 years that we managed it, right, it was never a full bin. So yeah, but eventually we decided to not focus on plastic and aluminum and focus on the paper, because instead of focusing on the whole school, we focus on the teachers instead, because teachers, actually dispose a lot of paper on a daily basis. So yeah, so towards the end of that 6 years, we focused on papers, and we actually generated revenue of about at least $50 on the monthly basis. Yeah. So apart from that recycling system that we have, because we are a recycling club, right? So we also join activities and exhibition, I would say, throughout every end of the year. So as you can see from the second picture, it was actually exhibition at one of the mall in our district. So my student was really amazing. If you can see, I'm not too sure if the pictures are clear enough, but you'll see on the table, right, it was actually a tray that actually made out of newspaper. So my students actually fold the newspaper until like very tiny and very sturdy, and then you stick it all together, it become a very sturdy tray. So we actually sold that as like a handicraft, that kind of things, and we sold it for Sing $20, so it's about like 60 ringgit. Yeah, so that was the highest generated revenue product. Yeah, apart from that, we also have some small ones, because we are quite accessible to a lot of recyclables. So because the school know that we have this club, so whenever they have some good material, they will just kind of like donated to us. As you can see from the third pictures, so that is our club room. So, and then you have very nicely, we have the shelf, and then where we can categorize all the materials and use it for our upcycling product. So the third pictures is as you can see from it's like a lot of plastic bottles, right? So that was the time that we thought, to raise more awareness, let's build a first eco hut. So unfortunately, I don't have the pictures over here, the finished product, but you can see that the plastic bottles actually form the roof of the eco hut. Yeah. We actually experimented it for almost a year. We try a few things. We try to glue the plastic bottles together, but then it didn't work, because under the hot sun, glue science, so it kind of dispatch, right, disconnect. And then we tried many types of glue actually, so all of them didn't work until one of my students was like, maybe we should sort it. So how do you do it? So sort it by hand, using the very thin aluminum coil. Yeah, so we saw all of them one by one. So So yeah, that lasted. That was the best method we have found, but that was a very tedious job. So my students, I'm very grateful for them. They actually came to school over the weekend. So Brunei, we don't have schools on Friday and Sunday. So my student actually came on Friday and Sunday to actually do that. I didn't know actually in the first place until one day I was having an extra class on Friday. Then I kind of like kept. Then I kind of like bump into them. Then that's when I found out that I actually did it on the weekend, because during the school days, weekdays, it was their timetable was quite occupied. Yeah. So other things that we did was banning of styrofoams in school, and also implemented off hour during lunch. So how the off hour works, right, is so during lunchtime it was like an hour. Yeah, so so we will off every things, all the electricity, all the lights in the afternoon. So our recycling club, other than what I had mentioned earlier on, we also later on became a movement where we invited the whole school and also schools in the same district to join one of our flagship event, which is the cleanup. So as you can see from the picture, the first cleanup was in Kampong Ayer, so it's a water village. Yeah, that was where, yeah, I think probably early in the morning, so there was no water. Yeah, I was at Kampong Ayer. Of all the cleanup, right, water village is the most interesting one, because there are just so many rubbish gathering accumulated in one place. So basically can just stand there and then just collect rubbish around the area, and then it can be easily made out of 2 or 3 big plastic bags. Yeah, and we also did island cleanup. So you would have to take a boat and then to an island nearby, and clean up whatever that's on the island. Yeah, but the most common one is beach cleanup. So as you can see, during the first year, there were just a couple of us, probably 10 students, but later on it became a whole school kind of event, where you can see from the last photo, there was about more than, like, I would say more than 30 people. Yeah. Okay, so these are the media coverage for our event, and you can see quite a lot of them over here. And I think that was a time that we cannot get I was nominated. Yeah, I was nominated back in 2014, and that was the year that I never, I actually done all these things without having expectations of winning anything, or became a movement or anything. It was just out of me wanted to contribute something to the community. But one day I was nominated, I received an email, and the next thing I know is I got selected, and there I go, still very blur, and there I go, I was in KL. Yeah, and I was so shocked as well when I was I mean, being a country winner was already a big deal for me, but being a grand winner was really something that I never expected. Yeah, so I'm really thankful for that opportunity. Because of that experience, it motivate me a lot, and that is where I thought to myself, I really want to devote myself into creating more awareness around this area and maybe do more things. So I think after that journey, it was after winning this award, I would say that's where I actually went into doing more, creating more activities, and hence where I am right now. So yeah, I would like to share my current project to all of you. It's actually started with Memory.io, and later on I moved into Miraf.io. I'll explain more details in later. So it started as a platform to provide legacy planning solutions. So when my grandparent passed away, about, I think back in 2015, I So I saw a lot of like, disputes around family matters. So I thought that, maybe it's good to have a good legacy planning. But on top of that, being an environmentalist, right? So I also, thought that, maybe there are ways to, to have more sustainable funeral practices and solution. Yeah, so that was a time that I start looking into, environmental friendly coffins or biodegradable coffins. So I was so into it. And yeah, and I told myself, you know what, I don't see much of this I will say products in this part of the world. So that's when I said, you know what, maybe I should start this in Brunei, starting with Brunei. Yeah, I look into a lot of those solutions. For example, turning ashes, body, like the cremated ashes, into very meaningful, memorable kind of keeps like for example gemstones. So I found a supplier that can turn cremated ashes into gemstones and also crystals, and also putting it into like a biodegradable kind of like a stone, and then you kind of like put it, that's where you kind of like in a way put it under the seabed. Yeah, and yeah, so for the past 2 years I've explored a lot around different kind of sustainable funeral practices, and this is where I am right now. Actually, I'm not in Brunei, I'm actually currently in Singapore. I just flew in to Singapore last month, and Singapore has just recently launched a garden of peace where they can actually where people can actually scatter the cremated ashes to the ground instead of disposing it in the sea or somewhere else. Yeah, so that is where I am right now. So very interestingly, when I was looking, I chanced upon this eco-friendly burial. I was there. There is a uh, and then also when I look into how it was done, it's basically wrap the body, instead of having a coffin, is wrapping the body with biodegradable cloth. Yeah, so and when I was reading the comment, right, I chanced upon this comment saying that, hey, that's actually an Islamic way of burial. Yeah, so that is when Brunei, right, is an Islamic country, so I start looking into Islamic funeral, and I think that's where I started miraf.io. So I'm gonna show you a pictures. So yeah, as you can see over here, interestingly, so to kickstart and validate the idea, so I partnered with one of the Islamic startups in Brunei, and we hosted a funeral management workshop in our co-working space. So basically we invited a imam, which is a religious leader, and then we teach people how to wrap the body, right, with the white cloth. Yeah, so that become a movement as well in some way. Yeah, and later on I turn it into a enterprise with social impact, where we actually, we actually we package the items that require to for the Muslim funeral. So we pack this and then into a bag, and then we actually get people to donate the kit to the mosque to help any other underprivileged family. So yeah, so I think this is where I am right now. Hopefully this idea will be widely accepted by I was hoping by other individuals or in the environmental community. Instead, like, because I also have found a few suppliers on the cloth. So for the non-Muslim, they can use the biodegradable cloth where the Western people are using. So this is where I'm currently at, experimenting this, and then hopefully that this idea will take off soon in Southeast Asia. Yeah. I think so it's very interesting how I started with recycling, system and movement and move into something that nobody actually expected, or even myself never expected, is the funeral part, but still, trying to, raise awareness around around environmental, friendly solutions. I would say that it's like living the earth, in the most sustainable way, like, the final journey, let your final journey, be a contributing, I would say, environmental kind of way, yeah, to the earth. So yeah, yeah, it has been really a rewarding journey. So ever since I started the environment work, for the past few years, I was delegate for quite a few international environmental summits. So I was in the UK, US, and you can see the photos. I met quite a few good Nobel Prize winner as well. And then, yeah, and has really been very rewarding. So yeah, and that's bring me to the last slide of my presentation. So what I think my take is, don't be afraid to do something you are passionate about because you think you are not good enough. Great things happen when you start to believe in yourself. I mean, these quotes resonate with me a lot because, back then I thought that, being the first in Brunei to start all this movement, and I was, was a little girl, I will call myself, that I don't know much about environment, all this kind of thing. And then, being a lady, I was, I received a lot of like negative comment as well, saying that, nobody will go into this, nobody will care about this. But I will say that I stood my ground and, stay strong and stay believe in what I'm doing and really passionate about this. So I think, yeah, so hard work never betray you. So I think what I have achieved today is a proof that, yeah, as long as you stick to your passions, it will lead you to where you want to be. And yeah, and that's all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Queenie Chong, for such interesting and wonderful sharing, and also very unique sharing as well, especially on your efforts as well in green. Once again, thank you. We would leave the questions to the end after the three speakers have actually presented. So once again, thanks, Queenie, for this interesting topic. I'm sure I've learned a lot as well today. And of course, your final quote, great things happen when you start to believe in yourself, which is a very good ending as well, a message to all of us here today. So let's move on to our next speaker. Thank you once again, Queenie. So we move on to our next speaker. I'll wait for Dr. Folk to just put up these slides. Our second speaker, just now I just was talking to Dr. Folk. Today we have three women speakers, all ladies. Okay, so we can see the entrepreneurship, green entrepreneurship in ladies as well. Maybe later we have questions for them as well. So the second speaker would be Professor Dr. Sumati Satupati from Malaysia. She was the second runner-up for the Green Award 2015. She's now the Professor, Faculty of Engineering and Green Technology of University Tunku Abdul Rahman, Malaysia, Utah. Currently also the Deputy Director of the Institute of Postgraduate Studies and Research of Utah. And today she's going to present to us the topic of environmental sustainability via waste reutilization. So with this, I'll hand over the control to Prof. Dr. Sumati for her presentation. Over to you, Prof.
Yep, thank you very much, Ayah Chow Fong. Let me share my screen.
Sure. Let me see whether the screen is up. Yes, okay, you can proceed.
Okay, a very good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining the AAET Green Award Breakfast Series, and also to AAET for actually inviting me again after, as what Queenie says, she was like almost 7 years and I'm almost 6 years now. At that time, I was just normal lecturer who just graduated and working for Utah. Right, today I'll be sharing my thoughts on environmental sustainability via waste reutilization. My topic will be really towards the research rather than what Queenie has presented more on the NGO side. So as a researcher, what can we do to the environment in terms of greening the environment, and how can we use the waste and reutilize them to be a greener waste, right? So that will be the focus of my presentation today. So let us look at it. So of course, I'm very sure all of you here knows very well on the recent global community, which is moving towards what they call sustainable living, which was enlightened by the United Nations through the sustainable development. And via this development that meets the needs of the present and without compromising the future of the future generations. And of course, the sustainable development itself aims to build an inclusive and sustainable and resilient future for the people as well as planet. So with this idea of sustainable development, I actually started off my green initiatives, whereby I would like to have a sustainable green environment, right? And of course, in the sustainable development itself, to achieve it, it is crucial to have a harmonize between the three core elements, which is the economic, the social aspect, as well as the environmental aspect. So when these three come in together, we can get a very good pillars of the sustainability in order to have a sustainable development. So in my research, I was basically focusing on the environmental side, whereby I'm trying to protect the nature resources from being not depleted, and also pollution prevention, making sure water is not being polluted, air is not polluted, as well as the solid is not being polluted. So I keep all this into my mind, saying that how can I come up with something which can actually reduce the nature resources depletion, at the same time solve the pollution being created by the humans, all right? And also to sustain the biodiversity in the planet itself, all right? So looking at this, okay, so of course everyone knows that we have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and these Sustainable Development Goals are proposed for to actually solve all types of problems faced by the global community. So looking and taking this as a point of reference, what I did is actually I look at the 17 goals, which is being listed out by the United Nations, and I take up a few of the goals and move into how to achieve it. All right. So I took up number 6, which is on clean water and sanitation. I took up 7, which is affordable and clean energy and responsible consumption and production, goal number 12, and also goal number 9, which is industry, innovative, and infrastructure. Okay, so while taking up my research, I totally focus on these elements so that I make sure that at the end of the day, I achieve some form of sustainability. All right. So for the goal number 6, I was basically trying to work out my research towards getting a cleaner water for green water, okay, a clean water so that it is accessible by people. The ones that they are accessing is clean, right? And also I'm looking into renewable energies so that I make sure that energy can be used by anyone and is cheaper in production. And I'm also thinking of innovative ways how to, and last but not least, to recycle paper, plastic, glass, and aluminum. So with this goal in my mind, I started to move out my research work. And of course, just by having this, you don't really have the thoughts, right? So I further into looking at the material footprint. What is the current global material footprint? What is being happening? It is clearly shown that about 190 million is estimated of material footprint compared to the population or economic growth. And this is serious because whenever you have the material footprint, it means that the natural resources is going to be depleting. And how our future generation, how grandchildren, grandparents, I mean, later on, you are going to be the grandparent and you can see your child is not getting enough natural resources because the material footprint is increasing rapidly. And we found out that the higher the income, the more the material footprint is. The more richer they are, the rich people are the ones who are actually using up more material and creating more material footprint. And about more than 60% higher than the upper middle income and more than 13 times level of the low income people. So when this happens, what will happen to the low income people? Poverty will definitely go higher and higher. Okay, so with this in mind, from the sustainable development activity and so on, I looked into the waste generated worldwide. It was about 2.1 million tons of solid waste, amounting to about 0.75 kilogram per person per day. Each of us are creating so much of waste. We should do something about it. And it is expected that by the year 2017, this is going to be going higher, higher and higher, increasing to more than 70%. That's why your material footprint by the year 2016 is so high as projected by the United Nations. And looking at the regional waste generation, we could see that, we could see that the East Asia and the Pacific is the highest contributor, and Malaysia is falling into these 37 countries under the East Asia, Southeast Asia, whereby we are producing almost a cumulative of 460 billion tons of waste. And this waste consists of many, many things, and the highest contributor is food and green. So what are the things that we can do? Okay, what can we do with this food and green? Because food and green itself is very, very essential for the human, and it is a source for us to survive. And also I looked at the waste trends in Malaysia, and it is also projected to increase by almost 5% yearly. And the composition of the waste in Malaysia as well, the highest contributor is food and organic, and it is normally from the household as well as industry. So I try to cater how to actually reduce this waste. And this is again to highlight to everyone who's attending today that the waste generated in Malaysia is mostly dumped to the landfill. Sad to say, almost 81.5% is being landfill without recycling. If only we could look at recycling, reutilizing and reusing it, it will be a very good thing for Malaysia. Okay, and also from the recycling rate that we are looking at, Malaysia has a national target, which is about 22%, which is 3.2 billion tons per year. However, in year 2020, this has surpassed the national target. And what are we doing it? What are we going to do with it? Okay, so these are some alarming notes that I would like to highlight here, that we as a Malaysian looking into green activity and green products, this is what we should look at. How to reduce the waste? How can we do it? All right. So my work was basically to reduce the material footprint. Okay. Not to use natural resources, and also reduce the usage of natural resources for any type of processes, especially in treating the air or water pollution. Okay, so how to do it? Okay, so normally people will look into reduce, reuse and recycle. So of course, reduction will come from the person who's making it itself, from the person who's doing
Dr. Sumati, you have, can you unmute yourself?
I'm sorry, because I'm receiving a lot of buttons out here. Okay, can you all hear me now?
Yes, can you? Yeah, you can.
Okay, I continue, sorry.
Okay.
So I'm looking at more towards the reuse and recycle as well as recovery. And also, I focus on circular economy to make sure that an economic system aims to eliminate the waste and the continued use of resources. So I look into not only reducing and recycling, but I also focus on the circular economy, so that the approach that I'm taking will reduce the contamination on the land, on the air and water bodies. At the same time, reduce water scarcity, because water is being used in any type of industry for any purposes, and also to reduce the carbon dioxide emissions, which is due from the processes itself. And of course, recycling in food production or recycling in the waste of the food and so on. And last but not least, producing renewable energy. And if you could look at this slide that I'm sharing, a circular economy itself is to have a better market with the recycled material, designing a better products using recycling material, not from the natural resources resources, not from the early start of the resources, reduce the processed waste, and of course, to have a life cycle through alternative consumptions and the promotion of reuse of the material that we have produced. Okay, so giving of all these thoughts that I've shared so far, I moved on into my research looking at various types of solid waste and converting them for different usages using different engineering application. As me myself was trained as the chemical engineer, so I moved towards using my engineering knowledge and thoughts how to actually use the solid waste and convert them to a usable item. Okay, so I focused on the main 4 areas of the sustainable development, which I highlighted earlier. I was basically producing renewable energy from waste. I was trying to treat water pollution from a material which is prepared from the waste. Same goes to the air pollution. I tried to treat it using a material which is generated from the waste, and also removing the current problematic gas in the world globally, which is carbon dioxide, to remove the carbon dioxide so that it could reduce the global warming. So I started with the fishery waste, whereby we have excessive abundance of waste prawn shells. So this was my initial work, which I done during my studies, whereby I tried to convert them to a value-added product called chitosan. I'm sure many of you heard of chitosan, which is being used to reduce human weight. Okay, if you're fat, you can drink some chitosan tablets to reduce the weight. However, this chitosan in a cheaper production, we can actually what they call a lower quality of the chitosan actually can be used to remove oil and grease in the wastewater. All right. So I was looking at this, and it was a big success, and there were many awards being won for this project itself, because I managed to produce a value-added material from the waste and remove another pollutant from another waste. So it was a cheaper solution, and the absorption of the oil by this material that I produced, which is not really a chitosan, it is called as chitac, because it's not up to the level of chitosan which can be consumable by humans, but it was a lower grade. At the same time, it could do almost the same function for the water pollutions, especially removing the oil and grease. And it is much cheaper than the marketable chitosan. And also, I've also compared the material that I'm using. Is it comparable with the commercial material? Yes, it was comparable with the commercial materials, much cheaper and much safer. Because if you look at aluminum sulfide or polyvinyl aluminum chloride, these are the famous coagulants that people use for wastewater treatment, and they are highly toxic and can cause Alzheimer's disease in humans. However, chitosan, I told you earlier, if you tend to consume it, it could help you in a some or other, because that is a natural product. And it is, after being used or after being absorbed by the oil and grease, it can be easily biodegradable and can be even converted to fertilizer. So that was the total idea of a circular and cradle to cradle approach, whereby I have a product which I produce from the waste, and I try to apply it to another part of the world to make sure that it is workable and it is green. Next, after looking at fishery, I went into palm oil industry, and I'm very sure all of you are aware that palm oil industry itself has a big industry in Malaysia, and they produce tons and tons of waste. They have palm kernel shell, mesocarp fibers, empty fruit bunches, and last but not least, they also produce a lot of palm oil sludge and palm oil effluent. Okay, so I was also working into this, how to convert this material, this waste material, make them into value-added products, and where they can be applied. Whenever I do a research, I focus to make sure that whatever material from the waste that I'm producing, not only I'm trying to make it to value-added, I will also make sure that material can be used for another purpose. Okay, so there were many works have been done, and I was focusing on converting them to a material which can be used as bioproducts. Okay, and I converted the palm shells to activated carbon. All right, and I tested them for sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide removals. Okay, and these two gases are pollutant gas released from the coal burning industry, whereby they burn coal to produce energy. And we have a few plants in Malaysia whereby they are still operating using coal to generate electricity, such as in Segari Lumut. All right. So So these factories at the moment, or these industries, are producing sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, and they are also using some form of absorbent to remove it before they discharge the clean air. So I'm also looking at how can I substitute that particular absorbent that they are using with the palm shell waste biowaste, which is converted to activated carbon. So it was also a huge success because we reported very good simultaneous removal of both gases, which means that you can use the same absorbent for the purpose of different types of gases. And the absorption capacity was comparable with the commercial one. And of course, this will be much, much cheaper because it is made from the waste. And not only looking at that, I was also looking at the sludge, whereby a lot of researchers was not looking into how to reutilize the sludge. So I focused on the sludge, and interestingly, I found out that the sludge, even without any conversion to some chemical processes to convert it to become a better absorbent, I found out that the palm oil sludge itself, without any modification, can remove heavy metals from the wastewater. We tried on the wastewater produced from semiconductor, whereby they release a lot of copper, cadmium, and many other metals such as nickel and so on. And we found out the palm oil mill sludge actually could remove these heavy metals. So this was another interesting idea, and also an interesting thing that we found that totally novel because it does not even need. And why it is performing so well? There are some characteristics in the sludge, the microbes and so on, which works well with the heavy metal. And of course, besides looking at the sludge, the heavy metals, I was also looking at other gases such as the biogas, which is also a current problem. So I was testing my biochars prepared from different types of material, not only the palm-based industry. I was also looking at Korean oak, Japanese oak, soybean stover, sugarcane bagasse, and so many other things to remove the flue gases such as carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, and also methane from biogas emissions. And I was also looking at sugarcane for removing wastewater to purify water, which is formed from landfill leachates. Okay, leachates are some form of liquid which is highly toxic.
Everything is fine. They are reservoirs are.
Sorry. Okay. All right. So I was also looking at removing, purifying landfill leachates with other types of mass waste, such as sugarcane, sea mango, for example. I'm sharing here. And recently, I have looked into eggshell waste, whereby a lot of people do not know that whenever I present eggshell waste, they will think that, okay, it's not so sustainable because you're talking about eggshell. How are you going to collect the eggshell? Is it going to come from your house? And how are you going to commercialize it? And many of us do not know that there's an industry called egg cracking industry in Malaysia, and there's about 3 companies under this egg cracking industry. And these industries, each of them produce almost 1 ton of eggshell per day. And that's where the commercialization value is. Because a lot of people, when I present this work, they will say, hey, you're going to get it from the restaurants or from your house. How is this feasible? But nobody knows that's an egg cracking industry, and they are facing a lot of problem on disposing the eggshell because the landfill do not want to take up this eggshell because it's in abundant amount and it creates maggots, vermins, and so on. Okay, so they are finding a lot of difficulties, and I went into and told them, hey, we can actually take your eggshell and produce a new line and produce a value-added material from the eggshell waste and do something with it. And they were also questioning me, what can we do with it? Okay, and of course, I'm sure some of you know that people are using eggshell in other industries for cosmetic issues, but I'm going to use it to solve a pollution. Okay, so I take up the eggshell, I converted them to a value-added product, and I tried on removing the gases again, and it was found out to be very, very good. I could even remove hydrogen sulfide, which means that this eggshell absorbent can be used to treat biogases. Okay, and of course, after the eggshell have absorbed the pollutants, for example, the sulfur dioxide or the hydrogen sulfide, it can be also biodegradable and it can be converted to gypsum. Same goes to my activated carbon, sea mango, the what they call the palm oil shells and so on, after it's being spent, it can be easily biodegradable because the material that we are using is not synthetic, it is from the nature and can be easily biodegradable after it's being spent, and it can even be landfill. Okay. And also I tried to generate energy, okay, because recently people are moving into renewable energy, how to use the carbon dioxide, the culprit behind global warming, and also to reutilize it. So I was looking at this, using all the absorbents that I prepared. I actually convert them to a value-added catalyst and try to make methane out of carbon dioxide. All right, and it was also successful, converting carbon dioxide into methane gas. So this is a renewable energy from waste gases. Okay, and I was also looking at waste aluminum cans because they are potential of producing hydrogen. Okay, and I have successfully produced hydrogen from abundant waste cans, and of course this is a very good what I call technology, which you can also not only for the aluminum can, but you can also use for waste aluminum foils from the bakery industry or the food industry and so on. So I tested this hydrogen gas from the waste cans. I tested on CO2 absorption and I merged them together and produced methane, a value-added renewable energy. So this is how actually I work towards producing renewable energy, producing a value-added material, and so on. And even after whatever the material that I'm using, after it's being absorbing the pollutants or removing the heavy metals or converting them to renewable energy, I make sure that they can be also further recycled or biodegraded. So I make my material in order to suit this so that it is green and we are greening the environment. Okay, so conclusion, I would like to say here, solid waste management is a universal issue which matters to every single one of us here. Okay, and in 2016, 5% of the global emission were generated from solid waste management, and it has to be corrected via recycling or reutilization of waste. Okay, we need to move towards a sustainable waste management society, and also ensuring effective and proposal solid waste management to make sure it is critical to achieve the sustainable development goals. And of course, if we explore, definitely it will be very positive. And reutilization, recycling indirectly reduces material resources as well as footprint. I believe that solid waste is a goal with engineering technologies, and waste can be always be a wealth to everyone. And that is the way forward for us to be into the circular economy and a greener world, a greener peace. All right. With that, I would like to end my presentation today. And thank you very much for listening. And also thank you very much to AAET for inviting me and sharing once again the glory of the Green Award. And thank you very much.
Thank you once again to Professor Sumati from Utah on the sharing of the sustainable waste management. And again, for those who have questions, please actually wait till the end of the session, after our third speaker, to actually, we will actually answer the questions. Okay, let's move on to our third speaker. Our third speaker of today is none other than Dr. Christine Tolot from Philippines. She was the country winner of AAET Green Award 2014. She's currently the R&D engineer in Malta. And today she's going to present to us the topic of light-driven water oxidation for solar fuels. And of course, because she's actually at a different time zone, she is unable to present on live. So she has recorded the video for us to actually look at the presentation today. So I'm going to play the video from her. Or Folk, Dr. Folk, are you going to play or? Okay, let me.
I think to play from the side better. Yeah, I think your voice, your sound there is
okay.
Clear there. Yeah.
Okay, wait.
Okay.
Let me just put on the video shortly. Okay. I will share the screen. Can you see my screen?
Okay. Yes, your screen. Yeah.
Okay, so presenting you Christine Tolot.
Hello everyone. My name is Christine. Today I'll be
Yeah,
sharing with
can hear
you.
very clear. Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
So the title of the talk is Light-Driven Water Oxidation for Solar Fuels. So it seems quite a handful, but don't worry, I will walk you through it. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Okay, so before I start, I was asked to introduce myself. So my name is Christine Tolod. I'm a chemical engineer from the Philippines. So I was part of the 2014 edition of Green Award, which was won by Queenie. So hi Queenie. And during the time when I joined, I was actually working for Petron Corporation as an engineer. And right after that, I decided to pursue further studies and to work on solar fuels, and I got into an Erasmus Plus PhD program. So where I was able to work with scientists and engineers um, in Italy and in France. And right now, I am actually based in Malta, a tiny Mediterranean country, and this is the reason why I cannot join you live for today because of the time difference. So I think by the time you watch this, it will be around 3 a.m. where I am right now. So okay, let me just start. I don't know if you've heard about this or if you've read about this, but um, the amount of solar energy that strikes the Earth's surface in 1 hour is actually enough to support the world's energy consumption for a year. So imagine if we're able to capture that much solar energy, our problems of energy insecurity will actually go away, right? So, but then it's not that easy. We're all familiar with the use of solar panels to generate electricity. In the recent years, it has become more and more advanced and became more efficient and cheaper. Um, though electricity is just one part of the energy demand. So, given the intermittent nature of solar energy, we need to be able to, I mean, we cannot always have electricity on demand, solar energy on demand. Right? So, um, we need to be able to store it. There are battery solutions for storing solar energy generated from photovoltaic panels. But what I'm gonna discuss with you this morning is another means of storing solar energy, which is actually through chemical bonds. And that is where the term solar fuels comes into play. Okay, so what could the production and use of solar fuels look like? So first we start with this one. So in this setup, sunlight is used to split oxygen. So hydrogen is used as a transport fuel. We have seen this. We are already seeing this at the moment. So it's not. I mean, we don't have the infrastructure, but then slowly there are more and more hydrogen fueled cars that are being produced. Okay, and so also from the water splitting of uh, from the water splitting process using sunlight, the hydrogen can be used along with other carbon-based fuels as raw materials or feedstocks to many industries like fertilizer, plastics, pharmaceuticals, and synthetic fuels for transport. All right, so that's one route. Another route is you use sunlight to produce directly carbon-based fuels from water and carbon dioxide. All right, so you need a source of carbon dioxide, which could be, let's say, a coal-burning power station that is fitted with a carbon capture technology. Okay, or whatever industry that produces a lot of carbon dioxide. Okay, and use that carbon-based fuel in existing technologies. So The solar fuels are hydrogen produced from this water splitting, or carbon-based fuels, which could be methane, carbon monoxide, and methanol, which you can then use in existing technologies. So for today, I'll be discussing to you our work on water splitting. So again, it's the production of hydrogen as the solar fuel from water splitting. So we make use of a photoelectrochemical cell. So a photoelectrochemical cell consists of a photoanode, an anode or a cathode. So our area of interest here is the photoanode because this is the bottleneck of the process. So if you have enough energy coming from the light source, which in this case is the sun, when you have sufficient energy, inside the photoanode, what happens is the electrons, which are originally in the valence band, when hit by sufficient energy, they get promoted to the conduction band, as you can see here, right? So, and then from the conduction band, it flows towards the electrical contacts here, and then travels all the way to the cathode, where it will participate in the hydrogen production, all right? And when the electron leaves the conduction band, what happens is that it leaves behind holes in the valence band, and those holes will get transferred towards the surface of the electrolyte, where it will participate in the water oxidation reaction. So it's light driven, by the sunlight. Water oxidation, so it's in this process to produce solar fuels, which is hydrogen. Okay, so there are several photocatalysts that can be used for water oxidation, and these three, hematite, tungsten oxide, and bismuth vanadate, are the more promising ones and also the more popular ones. So if you want to read more about a comparison of these, the pros and cons of using these photocatalysts, you can refer to our book on Horizons in Sustainable Industrial Chemistry and Catalysis. So for many reasons, we chose to work with bismuth vanadate. So I will show you bismuth vanadate as a photoanode. Okay, so here's a comparison of the ideal photoanode requirements versus bismuth vanadate. So to show you what are the advantages of using this particular material and the limitations as well. So it absorbs a substantial portion of the solar spectrum. So the solar spectrum consists mostly of visible light. So for us to be able to use a wide range of the solar spectrum, the material should be able to absorb a substantial portion of, a substantial portion of the solar spectrum, which is visible light. So it should be visible light responsive, which is a check for bismuth vanadate. So there should be appropriate band alignment to split water. This band alignment pertains to the alignment of these valence band and conduction band versus the potentials for the reactions. And it should be cost effective. It's cost effective. It's as most metal oxides are. However, it suffers from several drawbacks. So the electron hole separation. Sorry about that. Okay, the electron hole separation here is not so efficient for bismuth vanadate. The water oxidation kinetics is quite sluggish, and there's not enough photo voltage for complete water splitting. So you have to introduce a bias potential. So in order to address the limitations, there are several strategies to improve the bismuth vanadate photoanode. So you make use of several synthesis techniques to alter the morphology, modify the substrate, dopants, underlayer, overlayer, and so on. So he wrote a comprehensive review of different strategies to improve business photoanode performance, and you can refer to this journal for more information. Okay, so but what are the gaps? So we need a scalable synthesis. We need to understand the surface chemistry and interactions on the photoanode, and we need to improve the stability of the material. So the first phase of our work is about optimizing the recipe for the photoanode synthesis. Okay, so we made use of scalable technique, which is electrodeposition, to be able to
Makan-makan.
create
Oh.
our vanillate electrodes. So this is the final.
Sampai si Mampa pergi. Wah.
And we optimized several
Si
factors.
Mampa yang itu dekat, oh itu apa nama, itu kedai sana nak, itu mama sana.
So for the second phase, we improved the surface of the photoanode that we produce in the first phase. So just to give you an idea, because the surface of bismuth vanillate, like a lot of surfaces of metal oxides as well, they have some defect levels. So you see some defect levels. And what happens is they become recombination sites for electrons and holes. So you don't want that, right? You don't want the electrons and holes to recombine. You want them to split, because only in the split state do they get to participate in the reactions that we want. So recombination is bad. However, if you don't protect the surface, or if you don't passivate the surface, which is what we call it, there are defect levels that can act as recombination sites. So what we did was to add an aluminum overlayer on bismuth vanillate to be able to protect this surface. And what we did was a layer by layer addition of aluminum oxide. So this is the mechanism that we used. So we know from all the chemistry that we did, we know that there was there were OH groups on the surface of hydroxyl groups on the surface of bismuth vanillate, and we used surface organometallic chemistry in order to grow aluminum oxide layers, so layer by layer, and to the order of, like, we're talking about nanometers, layer by layer. Okay. So after that, we showed that by doing 2 cycles of aluminum overlayer, we were able to improve the efficiency. So IPCE is incident photon to current efficiency, which means like out of how many photons that strike the surface become electricity, become current, right? So we reached around 23% efficiency for the IPC using a wavelength of 450, let's say, which is in the visible region. Okay, so the end goal was to produce, to have a device, right? So after optimizing the processes for bismuth vanillate, we wanted to be able to use that information to produce a device that can fabricate a device that can produce hydrogen from water using sunlight. So this is actually a prototype for the Artifiction project. You can go to this site to get more information about this project. So it's a device that makes use of business vanillate, and water and sunlight to be able to produce hydrogen, which is the solar fuel, by splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen. Okay. So another thing about solar fuels, another thing that you might hear about. So what I've just talked about are about water splitting processes. There are also solar fuels research that make use of carbon dioxide and water plus sunlight to be able to produce directly carbon-based fuels. So that's producing what we call as artificial leaves. Okay, so I mean we're all familiar with the natural leaves. I mean, photosynthesis. It's well known that the plants use carbon dioxide and sunlight to be able to in the process of photosynthesis to be able to produce glucose, uh, which is its energy source. So we want to be able to replicate that, but instead of producing glucose, which is a bad fuel and not so good fuel for our purposes, we want to be able to produce fuels such as methane, methanol, ethanol. Okay, which we can use in existing technologies. So this is the next step. And this process is called artificial, we call it artificial photosynthesis, and we want to be able to make artificial leaves. So for this case, business validate as um, business validate is used as the photoanode, and it's the same water oxidation reaction. But then in the cathode, you make use of several other materials like copper-based materials to be able to reduce carbon dioxide into your desired carbon-based fuels. Okay. So with that, I end my discussion about solar fuels. But before I end, let me just share with you. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So I was asked to give some advice to the young ones also. So the first thing that I want to say is climate change is real. Let's not doubt that. So there's enough scientific evidence to show that it's real and it's man-made. So there's no doubt about that. Second, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to be able to contribute green initiatives. Okay, we're bending over backwards to produce artificial leaves, but planting trees is just as good, right? And that's something that everyone can do. So, and last but not least is respect the environment. So, respect the planet that sustains us. It's the only planet that we can live in. It's the only planet where we're made to survive. So there is no alternative. There is no planet B. So let us respect and be kind to our environment. Okay. To end, let me just leave you with my details. So I have here my ORCID for more information about the research that we have done. You can use this barcode, or you can contact me through these details that I'm showing on the screen if you have more questions. Okay, so I hope I was able to share something interesting for you today, and I hope to hear from everyone as well. So thank you very much and have a nice day.
Christine for the presentation given, and we actually appreciate her efforts as well to actually link with us, although she was not able to join us today. So let us move on to our final session, which is actually the Q&A session. What we'll do is, of course, for Christine, the questions for her, we will be actually sending to her for her to actually reply for those who have questions to Christine. And today's Q&A will be focusing on the two speakers today, Ms. Queenie and also Prof. Somati. And okay, so this Q&A session, let's do in such a way. You can post in the chat room, or if you have any questions that you want to actually ask directly, please actually raise your hands and I'll actually unmute the mic for you to speak. Okay, so let's start with just questions just now that we have picked up for Ms. Queenie first. The question goes in such a way from Prof. Chu. Interesting and meaningful work, Ms. Queenie. How is 350.org funded? Also, how is your present work funded? So this question is to Ms. Queenie. Maybe Ms. Queenie, you want to answer this?
Yeah, thank you so much for the questions. First of all, 350.org Brunei was actually started with a Facebook page, like a platform to raise awareness about climate change. So back then, 10 years ago, right, there was not much of events. So we hosted quite a few, but mainly on a very small basis. So some of them actually out of my pocket. Yeah, whereas I later on did a little bit smarter way, which is collaborating with different various NGO in Brunei that has more funding from the banks and corporates. So one of them is one of the NGO is actually called Beach Bunch, which I eventually became their committee member, which is the one that organizing the beach cleanup. So that got a lot of funding. Yeah, so I become a coordinator. So I kind of like channel my 350.org people to their events. Yeah, and later on I also joined several others like Buwao and all others. Buwao is actually the 2015 grand winner. Yeah. So I basically become a strategic coordinator for all the NGO because back then I was one of the first that started this page. So whenever they want to find about environmental news on all these things or wanted to know more about this, wanted to find resources about this, they will actually come to me. So I channel them to the right NGO based on their interest because like for example, they want to do green. A lot of students, right, they want to do something about green, but they don't know what specifically. I said you need to be more specific. Is it to do with waste? Is it to do with wildlife? Is it to do with marine wildlife? All these are very different. So I'm the one that will consult them, and direct them to the right NGO so that they can volunteer there. Yeah, whereas my current project, which is Memory and Mira, right? So I run it as a startup. So I raise fund from VC. Yeah, so that's how it's funded right now. And yeah, it's generating revenue. Hope that answer.
That's good. Thanks, Ms. Queenie. For the answer. The second question goes to Prof. Somati. If you can see from the chat room just now, Tan Swee Lian. Prof. Somati, how do you collect all the prawn shells in terms of logistics and so forth? Prof. Somati?
Yeah, actually, same goes to the eggshell just now, right? Thank God I mentioned about the egg cracking industry, so they didn't ask me that question. So similarly for prawn shell, in Sungai Udang, Penang, they have an industry, a fishery industry, whereby they export prawns and also fish without the gills, without the without the scales, as well as the shells of the prawn. So they have a massive exploitation. Therefore, they produce abundant of this waste. Per day, they could reach up to 50 kgs of prawn waste shells, fish scales, and so on. So this is not only one industry in Sungai Udang. So there are many alike in whole Malaysia. So I was working in Penang at that time in USM. So therefore, I was actually connected to that industry. So I got it for my experimental work. And after doing this and so on, at that time, there was a company called Hunza Marketing. They were also marketing these kind of products, and they get to know that there's this waste being produced and they can use it to convert to chitosan. And I think Hunza Marketing has taken up that as well. And they are also producing, one of the producers in Malaysia who's producing chitosan. And now Hunza has gone into pharmaceutical and nutritional. I'm not so sure how many of you are aware of Hunza. So Hunza is actually taking up that project actually they are converting it for the consumption of humans. Yeah. So that's where I get the waste. Yeah.
Thanks, Prof. Sumati. Now the next question goes back to Queenie. Given the COVID pandemic, how can youth environmentalists or environmental NGOs continue their work, given that the focus that and funding support is channeled to combating COVID?
Wow. Thanks so much for the question. This is a yeah, I would say that let me just share that I started with having NGO in mind, and I think that a lot of youth, right, when it comes to environmental movement, they always think that NGO and NPO is the way to go. But I think after a few years of starting it, I realized that getting funding for corporates and banks and all this endlessly, right, is definitely not a sustainable way. And I feel that we shouldn't be relying on outside external funding for your work. And then think about because I have seen working with so many NGOs, I have seen how they always wanted to chase after these corporates. So and that's where I chance upon a different kind of model, which is like social enterprise and also and social startup. So I'm later on last few years I start looking into social enterprises, and I started to also try to discuss with various NGO in Brunei as well, and also convincing them to go into this route. I will say that to really like make a strong movement, you need to be sustainable, and I think that's the model that all other NGO that are doing in outside Brunei. Yeah, so you have to have the like a revenue generator kind of models in your NGO. Like a lot of them actually start selling like merchandise and all these things. Like you say, even if you look, if you recall back my presentation, right, my recycling club, even a club itself is generating revenue. Yeah, and I'm probably the only. There was really surprised because like selling some people waste, you can even make money out of it. Yeah, so I say yeah, because you just have to, right? Yeah, we are the highest revenue generator club in the school, so that was a thing for them. Like, it was really interesting. So a lot of school were asking me for advice as well, like how do I make it that way? But we focus on high quality upcycling items. So I look into it and ensure that all the items are not just people just buy just to support, but rather people buy, like I mentioned earlier on, we turn it into like a tourist kind of handicraft, so that people buy to actually give it to foreigners, that kind of thing. Yeah, so I'm a strong believer of whatever movement you are running, you need to be generating some income to sustain your work. Yeah, so that is the model that I'm looking right now. And social enterprise right now, I think it's becoming a trend, I would say. I have been quite a few summits, and I think there's quite a few VCs that are looking into investing, impact investing, they call it. Yeah, so I would suggest them to go into this route instead of like relying on the funding from government on your or whatever movement you are making. I hope that answer.
Yes, that's a very good reply. Maybe the next webinar we could have is how to generate income through NGOs by Miss Queenie. That would be a very interesting topic about. Okay, let's move on to our next question. I think it's to Prof. Sumati. I think a question from Tan Swee Lian. MPOB, I think it's the Malaysian Palm Oil Board, is doing a lot of similar work on oil palm waste. Perhaps you should collaborate with them to get more in-depth and all-encompassing results. This for Sumati. I believe this is just a note. And then the next question to Prof. Sumati. Thanks for the interesting talk. Chitosan has medical use. where the value is much higher, such as wound dressing, etc. Have you explored this? This is a question from Dr. Chu.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. Okay. I think.
Anyway, the.
Oops.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, for the medical side, the product from the waste prawn shell or the sea, the fish gulls and so on, what happened is that they are going for a very high end, very high purification. Therefore, the cost will be very high as well. For my case, I'm not going to do that because I'm not looking at the medical side. So I'm going to look at the more easier one, which is the
Prof, your voice is breaking. Hello.
My
Prof?
internet connection is a bit bad today.
Okay. Now it's slightly better. Would you want to, or maybe you want to put in the chat room just to reply because I'm.
Yep. No problem. I can explain again. It's just that you see the prawn shells can be converted to a high value added value material and also a low cost material. So it depends on the what they call where they want to apply it. Okay, so if going for medical, then the rate will be higher and the purification needed also is very high. So as for my work, I'm not concentrating on the high end of the chitosan production. I'm going for the lower end whereby it's not chitosan yet. It is only at chitin level, and I can use that to solve another environmental problem. Furthermore, I'm not a medical science personnel, therefore I didn't focus on that.
Yeah, perhaps maybe here there is some medical science people that I can assist you as well. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Sumati, for the reply. Let me see, is there any other questions? I don't see any more. So maybe perhaps Engineer Chu, you have, Engineer Chu put up the, Engineer Chu, you have muted. Let me see, Chu, you have muted.
Okay, sorry about that. I just want to comment a little bit on what Queenie is doing. I think I fully support what she's doing. You know, it's time we do not want to always put our hands out and look for some kind donors to help us in our personal voluntary pursuits. Because being voluntary, I think you should be more independent. Try to raise your own money. This has all the time been my advice to many organizations that I'm involved in, and especially now AAET. You should do that in that manner. She used the word social enterprise. I think that's good. But what I want to intervene here is that actually there are a lot of initiatives started in Malaysia already, which I'm involved in also. We don't go to venture capitalists because we are too small. The venture capitalists are not interested in you, just like the bankers, they're not interested in you because your amount is too small. But the intermediary level, which has proven very successful internationally, is angel investors. So if you need any assistance from this, please keep in touch. I can show you some of the angel investors activities that are going on. That has been very successful. Of course, those which have gone through the angel investors kind of funding, and they really have got potential to become big companies, then the venture capitalists will come in. The venture capitalists are very brutal. They only see profits, they don't see anything else. All your noble work, they are not interested in that. They're only interested in making money. But at the angel investors level, you really find people who are passionate, who want to support the kind of activities that you are going in. They will come in a big group to render support. Personally, also to meet their own ambition of doing something for the world. Okay, I just want to share this experience I have with you if you're looking for one way of funding your own activities. All right, thank you. And lastly, I think this morning's very interesting topics. So well done, Xiaofong. Keep the good work going. You and book especially.
Okay, I believe you have more questions to ask the speakers or even the presenters. They have actually shared the contacts. You can contact them via LinkedIn and also the various social media that they have actually shared as well. So before, I think we come to almost the end of our session today. Now, before we end, maybe we'll just do a promotion, Dr. Fook. As we mentioned earlier, today's breakfast chat is all regarding the upcoming AAT Green Awards. Just like to share with you, we have heard earlier from the past winners, and just to announce to you as well, this year we're going to have our Green Award 2021, and organized by AAET, of course. And we want to recognize the young green entrepreneurs and also contributors to the green growth, just like what you have heard from the speakers today. They are the technopreneurs and of course contributors. So as long as you are 40 years and below, of course, the date is actually mentioned there. You are living in ASEAN and want to make a difference in environment or promoting sustainable development. So you are eligible. And how to participate? Next slide. Oops. You have to go to the next. Okay, so we have the nominees can be from categories like, for example, reducing greenhouse, protecting the land and water resources, minimizing waste, just like Prof. Sumati, green entrepreneur, just like Mr. Queenie, promoting green concept or even community action for the environment. You can be a volunteer and member in non-profit organization. So I believe most of you qualify, so don't miss out this chance. So how do you do that? Next slide. So the closing date is extended because of the COVID pandemic to next month, 31st July 2021. And we most likely will do an award giving ceremony in October in conjunction with the KL Engineering Science Fair. Most likely it will be virtual, but we just see the situation later. But we can do it also in a grand mode, although it's virtually. And for those who are interested, please log on to the official website of this particular award and of course the criteria, or you can email to the AAET Executive Secretary who's here as well, Dr. Fook. You can email him your interests, or if you want to actually ask more questions and of course know more about this particular award. So this award, every country will have a country winners. So you have actually 10 ASEAN countries. So you participate based on your countries, and after that, there is actually a grand winner as well. So don't miss out this chance. 2021 awards are just about 1.5 months away. Do submit your application, and in fact, I believe we will also be doing another AAT Green Award breakfast chat, maybe before the end of the 31st July, so that just to remind all of you for your submission. And if you have any questions, you can still ask us. So hope that all of you are ready. I believe today we have a lot of young crowd. I encourage all of you to join this award, just like what you have here heard from the 3 young lady entrepreneurs and also green entrepreneurs as well today. And so if you are ready, then sign up and of course pass your forms to Dr. Fook as soon as possible before the closing. Okay, Fook, I think that's all right. The slides next. Okay, so I believe we have come to the end of our breakfast chat today, 1.5 hours breakfast chat. I hope that all of you have actually gained some new knowledge, especially in terms of sustainable and green as well. You have heard from Ms. Queenie, you have heard from Prof. Somati on waste management. You have also heard and of course witnessed a video from Ms. Christine on solar technologies. And that's all we have for today. And of course, we're going to ready ourselves for our next breakfast chat, our 4th breakfast chat, which hopefully by another 1 or 2 months, to share with you another batch of winners. We have winners from 2011 to the previous one. I think there are about 40 to 50 winners. We have shared 2 editions, and today the 3rd edition. So we hope that you will join us again for the 4th breakfast chat, where we invite more past winners to share their success story as well as also what they are doing now, so that you can also learn from them or even collaborate with them. in terms of green. So before we end, perhaps we want to have a group photo. So so put up your video now for Dr. Folk to just take.
Yeah, we'll take photo. Yeah, please put up. Yeah. Okay, to yourself. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm taking the first page now. Okay. 80. 1, 2, 3. Wait, sorry, wait for a while. Okay. Okay, the second page now. Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
Once again, thank you. Once again, thank you, Engineer Chu, for starting and welcoming us, and of course ending the speech just now. So once again, thank you, and we see you again in our 4th AAT Green Breakfast Chat coming soon in the 1 or 2 months. Thank you, and have a nice weekend. Stay safe, and see you again soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. See you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.